What if I told you that while the tech industry is currently spending like $1.5 trillion to build these impenetrable, highly isolated artificial brains, medical science just discovered that the human brain's actual secret to surviving old age is, well, tearing its own walls down.
It is, yeah. It's an incredible contradiction. And honestly, it perfectly captures the exact moment we find ourselves in right now.
Right. Welcome back. It is time for another custom-tailored deep dive into your reading list. Today, we are opening up just a staggering stack of sources from the Daily Tech Reader dated August 14th, 2026.
Really heavy stack today, yeah.
Totally. We are here to sift through the noise, connect the dots, and get you completely caught up on the forces shaping the board right now.
And as I was going through your material, a very distinct theme emerged. I'm calling it pressure cookers and progress. Because from extreme weather and shifting global borders to the terminal velocity of artificial intelligence and some truly wild medical discoveries, the world is running incredibly hot.
It really is. But under that intense pressure, we are also making these massive, unprecedented leaps forward.
We are. But, before we get into the mechanics of those leaps, it is vital to establish some ground rules for you, the listener.
Absolutely.
Because the sources you provided, they contain some highly charged political developments involving the current U.S. administration, global military conflicts, and domestic protests.
Yeah.
We are strictly here to impartially unpack the information contained in your stack. We aren't taking sides. We aren't endorsing policies or validating viewpoints. We are simply giving you the context to understand the facts, exactly as they are currently laid out in your reading.
Right. Impartial delivery, that's the mission. So let's start with the most literal interpretation of our pressure cooker theme. The actual physical heat gripping the planet right now.
Right.
Currently, a really stubborn heat dome is just locked across the American South. We were talking about heat indices hitting like 105 to 115 degrees Fahrenheit from Texas all the way across to the Carolinas. And it's not just the air that is baking. Lake Mead, the largest reservoir in the U.S., sitting right on the Arizona-Nevada border, it just hit a new all-time low.
Yeah, and that intense localized heat, it's really a stark reflection of the broader environmental strain happening globally.
How so?
Well, if you look at the research out of the Amazon rainforest in your stack, scientists are sounding the alarm that the region is nearing this irreversible tipping point.
Because of the drought.
Because of chronic drought and fire, yes. And to understand why that matters, you have to look at how a rainforest actually functions. It doesn't just receive rain, it creates it.
Right, it makes its own weather.
Exactly. The trees pull moisture from the deep soil and release it into the air as vapor that gathers into clouds and literally rains back down. It is this massive, self-sustaining hydrological pump.
And if too much of that forest burns, the pump just breaks.
That's it. Once enough trees are gone, the forest can no longer generate its own regional rainfall. It crosses a threshold where it essentially stops being a rainforest and just begins transitioning into a dry savanna.
That is terrifying.
It is. And what is chilling about this study is the historical context they bring in. The researchers draw these direct structural parallels to a catastrophic global forest die-off that occurred 56 million years ago.
Wow, 56 million.
Yeah, during a period of rapid planetary warming. It shows how incredibly fast a biome can collapse when those core mechanisms fail.
Well, and it makes sense that as the physical land dries up, our vital waterways are becoming, the new battlegrounds. Yeah. We see this in the Black Sea right now, where escalating clashes between Russia and Ukraine are directly threatening major grain export routes.
Which is a huge concern.
Huge. That immediately stokes fears of a surge in global food prices, because so much of the world relies on that specific corridor for wheat. But the real geopolitical flashpoint in your sources today, that has to be the Strait of Hormuz.
Oh, absolutely. The Strait of Hormuz is arguably the most critical maritime choke point on Earth. It is a narrow waterway, only about 21 miles wide at its narrowest, but roughly a fifth of the world's daily oil consumption passes right through it.
A fifth of the world's oil through 21 miles. That is insane.
It is a massive bottleneck, and the standoff there is deepening rapidly. Iran recently struck 2 UAE oil tankers in the strait, and negotiations that were being brokered by Oman to de-escalate the situation, they have entirely stalled.
Wow.
Yeah. And in response to that, we are seeing a dramatic, totally unprecedented policy shift from the U.S. President Trump has formally declared the Strait of Hormuz a United States territory.
Okay, let's just pause and unpack that for a second. Declaring an international waterway as U.S. territory, how does that even function from a legal or economic standpoint?
Well, it is essentially a mechanism to enforce what the administration is calling economic isolation against Tehran. By attempting to apply domestic U.S. jurisdiction over that specific international transit corridor, the administration is basically claiming the legal authority to heavily regulate or block or penalize any commerce moving through it that connects back to Iran.
I see.
It is just a profound escalation of economic pressure.
Okay, so we have physical resources drying up, and at the exact same time, global shipping lanes are literally sparking with political friction. I mean, are we just finding patterns in the chaos here, or is this like a synchronized global stress test?
Oh, it is highly synchronized. You really cannot separate the climate reality from the political reality.
Yeah.
When environmental resources like water or grain become scarce, it places immense pressure on human supply chains.
Right.
And that economic anxiety inevitably inflames geopolitical borders. They feed into each other, creating this massive feedback loop of friction.
And that friction takes a really tangible toll on the people stationed right in the middle of it.
It does.
Because if we look at the U.S. military in your sources, the Pentagon is currently having to deploy a second aircraft carrier to the Middle East to relieve the USS Abraham Lincoln.
Yes.
And the catalyst for this move is just tragic. During an incredibly grueling extended deployment in that high-tension region, there have been multiple sailor suicide attempts.
It's awful. And it's a stark reminder of the human operating system, right? An aircraft carrier is essentially a floating city operating on high alert in a hostile environment.
Yeah.
When you extend those deployments endlessly without relief, the mental health toll just becomes unsustainable. The human element begins to crash.
And while the Navy is trying to manage that immediate human crisis, they are also dealing with a sweeping structural directive right now. President Trump has ordered the Navy to abandon their brand new electromagnetic launch systems for aircraft and revert entirely back to older traditional steam catapults.
Right, which is drawing some very sharp criticism from military officials who are focused on modernization.
I can imagine.
But to really understand the debate, you have to look at the mechanics of how planes get off a flight deck. For decades, carriers used steam catapults. It is brute force thermodynamics.
Right, literally just pressure.
Exactly. Drawing pressurized steam directly from the ship's nuclear reactor to literally fling a jet forward. It is century-old technology, but any sailor with a wrench and a manual can fix a ruptured stem valve while under fire.
Whereas the new electromagnetic systems, they're entirely different.
Completely different. The new systems use linear induction motors, so essentially using highly calibrated magnetic fields to accelerate the aircraft really smoothly.
Okay.
It puts far less stress on the airframes, and it allows the ship to launch a much wider variety of drones and jets, but it is incredibly software dependent.
Ah, there it is.
Yeah. The argument against it is that if a line of code glitches or a digital sensor fails during combat, you cannot fix it with a wrench. You need a specialized systems engineer. And until they find that bug, the flight deck is paralyzed.
That is fascinating. It's a classic tension between theoretical digital efficiency and, like, analog battlefield reliability.
Exactly.
And, that tension is testing our domestic institutions, too. In higher education, a federal judge in Boston just dismissed the Trump administration's anti-Semitism lawsuit against Harvard University.
Yeah.
The judge found that the claims just didn't meet the legal threshold for federal intervention under Title VI. But perhaps the most unsettling domestic strain we are seeing today is the breakdown of trust regarding our surveillance networks.
Oh, this is a massive revelation in the stack.
Right. Your sources reveal that the Department of Homeland Security ran a sweeping surveillance operation targeting left-leaning groups protesting ICE in Minnesota.
Yes, and that surveillance creep isn't just top-down from vast federal agencies anymore. It is happening at the micro level, driven by everyday employees.
This part blew my mind.
Right. We are seeing allegations that Customs and Border Protection workers are routinely using restricted government law enforcement databases to spy on their exes, their crushes, and their colleagues.
I have to jump in here because I just don't understand how these agencies, which are obsessed with national security protocols, design software with zero internal safeguards. I mean, how do you give a border agent access to a sprawling surveillance dragnet and just cross your fingers they won't look up their ex?
Well, because for the last 2 decades, the entire tech industry prioritized frictionless design.
Frictionless.
Exactly. They wanted systems where authorized users could pull up data instantly without jumping through administrative hoops. They prioritized speed over security protocols, operating on this assumption of professional trust.
But people are people.
Right. As your sources show, human nature dictates that if a tool can be abused for personal curiosity, it will be.
But the backlash is finally forcing a retreat, which is interesting. Look at Flock Safety. They run those ubiquitous license plate surveillance cameras you see in neighborhoods everywhere.
Yes.
Their CEO just had to issue a very public apology because police officers were completely misusing the database to track people without cause.
It's the same exact problem.
Exactly. And the public blowback was so severe that Flock was forced to slash their default data retention from 30 days down to just 7 days. And even more importantly, they now mandate that officers log a specific case code to create an audit trail before they can even initiate a search.
They're adding the hurdles back.
Right. We're finally seeing friction deliberately introduced back into the system.
We are. But, while human institutions are adding friction and pulling back, the digital infrastructure sector is doing the exact opposite.
Going all in.
Completely. They are pouring unimaginable resources into building a frictionless, automated future. Financial Times analysis places big tech's AI infrastructure purchase commitments near $1.5 trillion.
Wait, halt right there. 1.5 trillion. With a T.
With a T.
We toss that word around a lot in the news, but how does that physically manifest in the real world? Where are they even finding the electricity to run $1 trillion worth of computing?
That is the defining question of the decade. $1.5 trillion isn't just buying software. It is buying massive tracts of land, negotiating exclusive contracts with nuclear power plants, and laying thousands of miles of transatlantic fiber optic cables.
Oh, wow.
It means entirely new electrical grids and cooling systems designed solely to keep servers from melting down. We are quite literally reshaping the global economy around computation.
And the companies providing the pickaxes for this gold rush, they're seeing unprecedented numbers. Applied Materials, which makes the highly specialized equipment needed to manufacture these advanced semiconductors, they just posted a $9.1 billion quarter.
Massive.
Their revenue is up 25% year over year, and they plan to double their manufacturing capacity by 2028. But here's the wild part. Their stock fell anyway. I mean, are we living in a reality distortion field where only infinite growth is acceptable?
We absolutely are. Wall Street has already priced in an economic revolution. The financial expectations for anything related to artificial intelligence are so stratospheric that merely having an incredibly successful, record-breaking quarter is viewed as a disappointment.
That's crazy.
If a company isn't defying the basic laws of economic gravity, the market assumes they are falling behind.
And the model builders themselves are definitely trying to defy gravity.
Yeah.
Google just launched Gemini 3.7 Flash. It is a workhorse model, specifically geared for coding and agent workflows.
Yes.
It hit 43.6% on the Frontier Code benchmark, and they priced it aggressively at just 75 cents per million input tokens. But for those of us who aren't software engineers, what do those metrics actually mean?
Okay, so Frontier Code is a rigorously difficult benchmark. It tests how well an AI can autonomously write, debug, and deploy complex software without any human handholding. Storing over 40% means the model is remarkably capable at acting as an independent developer. As for the price, a token is roughly 3/4 of a word. So 1 million tokens is roughly equivalent to the entire text of the Harry Potter series.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Google is allowing developers to process that staggering amount of data for 75 cents. It essentially demonetizes high-level intelligence.
But OpenAI immediately fired back. They previewed an ultra-fast API tier running GPT 5.6 Sol. By partnering with Cerebra's hardware, it runs up to 14 times faster than standard processing. We are talking up to 750 output tokens per second.
Unbelievable speed.
How is a hardware switch making it that much faster?
It comes down to the physical architecture of the chips. Normally, silicon wafers are cut into dozens of tiny separate chips, like the size of a postage stamp, and data has to travel through wires between them. Cerebra's does something entirely different. They keep the entire silicon wafer intact as one giant dinner plate-sized processor.
Wait, really? A whole plate?
Exactly. Because the data never has to leave the wafer, there is zero latency. To put 750 tokens a second into perspective, that is like an AI generating and summarizing a short novel in the time it takes you to blink.
That is just, it's hard to even comprehend.
It is. When AI can output information that quickly, It crosses a psychological threshold. It stops feeling like a software tool you're waiting on and starts acting like a real-time cognitive partner.
But the global borders we talked about earlier, they're already fracturing this digital landscape. Apple's currently partnering with Alibaba to train a custom, highly specific large language model just so they can navigate local regulations and roll out Apple Intelligence in mainland China.
Yes.
Meanwhile, OpenAI and Anthropic are aggressively cutting their enterprise prices because low-cost Chinese competitors are rapidly gaining ground.
The walls are going up in the digital world just as fast as the physical one. It is a push toward nationalism in technology, and we see it in hardware, too. President Trump imposed overnight tariffs on drone imports. It's a direct protectionist move meant to insulate domestic manufacturing. That immediate policy shift sent U.S. drone stocks like Red Cat and Unusual Machines surging. Unusual Machines jumped over 25% practically overnight.
And this localized automated infrastructure is hitting the streets right now. Pony.ai and Uber are planning to deploy over 2,000 autonomous robotaxis across 5 major European cities. The machines are quite literally taking the wheel.
They really are.
But here's the pivot that really caught my eye in your sack today. While we are spending trillions of dollars upgrading our artificial neural networks and isolating them behind national borders, science is making some phenomenal breakthroughs regarding our actual biological neural networks.
This is perhaps the most profound paradigm shift in your sources. For a very long time, medical science operated on the core assumption that the human brain was largely isolated from the rest of the body's immune system, protected by a strict biological wall known as the blood-brain barrier. But new research out of Stanford University has completely shattered that view.
Yeah, for decades, I thought of the blood-brain barrier like a bank vault. Absolutely nothing gets in without extreme clearance. But this study shows that around middle age, the vault actually turns into like a semi-permeable membrane. It actively starts importing immune cells from the bloodstream, letting them flood in to act like a biological cleanup crew.
That is exactly what the research reveals, and it fundamentally changes how we view the aging brain. The brain isn't failing because the barrier breaks down. It is deliberately dropping the barrier to invite the immune system in to help manage the stress of aging.
It's incredible.
Right. If the immune system is actively interacting with the brain from middle age onward, it opens up entirely new avenues for how we might treat neurodegenerative diseases, most notably Alzheimer's. It shifts the entire medical focus from treating the brain in total isolation to treating the whole body immune response.
And there is even more encouraging news on the Alzheimer's front today. A sweeping study involving over 21,000 women showed that those who used estrogen-only hormone therapy later in life had a significantly lower likelihood of developing dementia.
Huge findings.
And furthermore, brain scans showed they actually had fewer Alzheimer's biomarkers present.
It underscores how deeply interconnected our systemic health really is. Estrogen plays a vital role in the brain's energy metabolism. When hormone levels shift, it impacts the brain's ability to fuel itself. Hormones, immune cells, cardiovascular fitness, it all compounds.
Which perfectly explains a very practical, everyday health win found in your reading today. A vast analysis of 480,000 people found that simple, regular stair climbing is linked to a 39% lower risk of cardiovascular death.
39%.
Just taking the stairs instead of the elevator fortifies your entire system. And maintaining that baseline health is vital because biological threats haven't gone anywhere. We received an alert today that an Ebola outbreak has now spread to a 6th province in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
It is the ultimate contrast of our era. We are engineering artificial intelligence models that process 750 words a second on massive silicon wafers, yet our actual survival still heavily relies on fundamental analog biology. Walking up steps, regulating our hormones, and trying to contain viral outbreaks in vulnerable regions.
And with all of this incredibly heavy geopolitical heat, the sheer velocity of the technological acceleration, and the ongoing biological threats, it is no wonder human beings are desperately seeking an escape.
Absolutely.
And looking at the entertainment and sports metrics, they are finding it in record numbers. Hollywood is experiencing a phenomenal rebound. 2026 is officially the biggest year at the box office since the pandemic. We are seeing 115 to 120 wide theatrical releases this year, and the summer box office alone just crossed the $4 billion mark.
Leading that charge is Spider-Man: Brand New Day. It just topped $700 million domestically and $1.67 billion globally.
It's so huge.
It is now the second fastest film in cinematic history to cross the $1 billion mark internationally, sitting right behind Avengers: Endgame. But even in the business of pure escapism, there's deep institutional anxiety. Theater owners are nervously watching the ongoing antitrust trial regarding the Paramount-Warner Bros. Discovery merger.
I was wondering about that. Why are theater owners so worried about two studios merging?
Yeah.
Doesn't that just create a bigger studio with more resources?
Well, because consolidation almost always means a reduction in overall output. If two major studios combine, they don't keep making the same combined number of films. They lay off redundant staff, streamline production, and greenlight fewer projects to maximize their profit margins.
Well, that makes sense.
Theaters run on volume. They need a steady stream of diverse movies to keep the doors open, and they are terrified a merger will choke off that supply.
Yeah. That deep human need to gather, to experience something collectively is extending right into the sports world as well. The Philadelphia Phillies just routed the Minnesota Twins 7-1 at the Field of Dreams game.
What a game.
You had Kyle Schwarber blasting 2 home runs literally into the cornstalks. This is all happening in a tiny, temporary stadium in Dyersville, Iowa, in front of just 7,163 fans, with 26 Hall of Famers in attendance, honoring the history of the game. On top of that, NFL preseason Week 1 is rolling. The Steelers beat the Packers, Drew Aller looked great in his debut, and we have a full Friday and Saturday slate coming up.
Even the financial markets are catching a bit of that pop culture, collective gathering energy. Reddit shares surged more than 12% today on the announcement that the community-driven platform is officially being added to the S&P 500 index.
Think about this snapshot of humanity right now. We have 2,000 autonomous robotaxis navigating European cities, while simultaneously we are gathering in an Iowa cornfield to watch a baseball game in front of 26 Hall of Famers. It is like we are sprinting into the digital future while desperately clinging to our analog nostalgia.
If we pull back and look at the entire board today, the connections are really clear. The physical heat of the climate and the geopolitical friction and choke points like the Strait of Hormuz represent a world feeling the profound strain of limited resources. To solve those incredibly complex, overlapping problems, we are pouring trillions of dollars into hyper-accelerated AI and localized infrastructure. And underneath all of that noise, we are making quiet, profound discoveries about how our own biology adapts to aging while seeking out movies and baseball games to remind us of our shared humanity.
And to help us keep all of this in perspective, I want to offer one final grounding detail from your sources to take you into the weekend. Tonight, and into the pre-dawn hours of Sunday, the Percy meteor shower reaches its annual peak.
Oh, that's right.
Under dark skies, you will be able to see up to 100 meteors per hour. After a week of processing everything from global conflicts and neural networks to box office returns, it might be the perfect time to just step away from the screens, go outside, and look up.
As you look up at that sky tonight, I will leave you with this thought to mull over. We are currently spending $1.5 trillion to build isolated, highly secure AI brains, designing custom borders and firewalls to protect data and prevent outside interference. Yet, at the exact same time, we have just learned that the human brain's defining feature as it matures is actually breaking down its own biological barriers to let the outside world in. It makes you wonder, if we truly want to build resilient intelligence, are we making a mistake by keeping our machines so isolated?
That is a phenomenal question to end on. Thank you so much for bringing us this incredible stack of sources today. The engine might be running hot right now, but taking the time to truly understand the mechanics makes the ride a lot less scary. We cannot wait to see what you bring us next time for your custom deep dive. Take care and enjoy the meteor shower.